Hi, my name is Seth Davis. This is going to be my Ignite Teaching Philosophy for CI 302. I'm currently a secondary history ed major at Iowa State, getting a learning technologies minor as well as a few other endorsements. So first we'll start out with what I want my classroom to be, kind of a framework for what I want to shape it around. First and foremost, I want my classroom to be a community, primarily a community of learners where everybody works together actively to gain knowledge. I also want my classroom to be experimental. Experimental in the fact that it's not complicated, but rather experimental in the fact that there's a different approach to each problem, and each problem does not have one way to solve it. Every problem that's created in the classroom can be solved multiple ways, and I want my students to understand that. So through making my classroom an experimental space, I believe that I can facilitate that learning into students. I also want my classroom to be meaningful. Meaningful in the sense that when students come out of my classroom each day, they can say that they've learned something, or they can say that they can apply something that they're learning in my class out in the real world. It's one of the main goals of every teacher is to facilitate learning in a way that their students will go out in the real world and use it. And I think we don't have enough of that today. So above all, I would like my classroom to be meaningful. This is a very powerful quote from Nelson Mandela that I think of every day. Education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. I believe that's true. I don't believe violence is the true way or the true weapon to change the world. I believe education. If everybody had a basis of education, the world would be a much better place. And this quote really hits deep with a lot of teachers, including myself. So one thing that I aspire to be is a AAA teacher. I'll get on to what a AAA teacher means in the next couple of slides, but a AAA teacher in the sense that it's not a double A or a single A. It has to be all three things that come together to make a teacher a AAA teacher. It can't just have one really good thing and then lack in another certain spot, such as like frameworks such as TPAC. If you're really good in a few areas but you lack in another, you're doing the framework and your students a disservice. I feel like a AAA teacher has to be a well-rounded teacher, and let's get on to what that means a little bit in the next couple of slides. So first of all, I believe a AAA teacher, the first A in AAA, in my example, I believe a teacher should have clear learning objectives, meaning kind of goes hand in hand with the second point here, work smarter and not harder. I don't think that a teacher should make learning for her students harder by not making clear learning objectives. So having clear learning objectives can help students learn a lot more effectively, I think. And if they can say that they learned that objective when they come out of class, I think that's a big win for the teacher and the student. And I think another thing to aim for when you're a teacher is to find each student's passion. If you can find each and every one of your students' passion, you can hit them on a deeper intellectual level and therefore make their learning experience in your classroom more effective. Action is the second A in being a AAA teacher. I believe it's the area of most progress, and I also believe it's the area that teachers will get stuck in the most. This is where students will be taught new topics after you find their passions, after you make your clear learning objectives. This is where you'll teach those learning objectives and hopefully get closer to those learning objectives. And I believe this is the area where you will also engage your students the most on a cognitive scale because they'll be thinking about the learning actively. And the third A in being a AAA teacher for me is that students find purpose in the learning and they present learning actively in the community or out in the real world. And this is the point at which the students become the teachers. So this is how I seek to be a AAA teacher. I think the first thing that teachers need to be a AAA teacher is to have a basis of attention. So find the problems in your classroom or find the troubles where your students are having trouble with learning a certain subject and be attentive to those and kind of be attentive to a student's problems in those. And I believe if you do that, you're one step closer to being a more effective teacher. I also think being non-traditional, especially in the 21st century, is a key thing in being a AAA teacher. It's the thing I aspire to be definitely is being non-traditional because I don't like, such as the classroom that's set up here, I don't like all my students facing forwards, looking at the teacher, listening to a lecture. I don't think that facilitates learning in a correct way. Third, connection. So after all those last two things are done, um, being a AAA teacher and engaging with your students means you have made a connection with them, learning or whatever really. If you coach, just making a connection with your students so they know that they have someone there to facilitate while also maintaining a professional relationship with your students is super important in being a AAA teacher, in my opinion. So one day I do hope to be all these things. However, as Michelangelo said, at the age of 87, I am still learning. I am still in school. I'm only a junior. Why I'm learning every day, I know that I will never be perfect, but we can always strive to be better. Thank you.